Well, greetings, everyone. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by 101 CBD, the makers of premium raw CBD oil, tinctures, and topicals. Like their Chill-X blend tincture, which is perfectly formulated to help us deal with the extra level of stress and anxiety that we're all coming up against during this quarantine. And it comes in their award-winning blueberry flavor, which, by the way, I got to tell you, I sent my mom some last week, and she really does love that blueberry flavor. It's really tasty. Now, they want to remind you that they are fully stocked right now with their Raw Relief CBD hand sanitizer, which is perfect because I use it when I have to break quarantine, if I have to go to the store. Usually what I'll do is before I get back in my car after I leave the store, I'll put on the hand sanitizer, so that way I don't have to worry about or think about having to sanitize all the surfaces in my car. So go over to 101cbd.org, pick yourself up some Chill-X tincture to help you relax, and also get some Raw Relief CBD hand sanitizer for everybody. And don't forget to use coupon code IMGS25 to get 25% off of that order. All right, everybody, let's start the show. Well, welcome back, everybody. This is the In My Grow Show, the podcast dedicated to taking the mystery out of cannabis. I'm your host, Alex. I hope everybody's doing as well as you can during the quarantine. I think this is, week 3, week 4? Yeah, so I hope everyone's doing okay, keeping it together inside. Stuck with your families or just by yourself if you don't have family living with you. Just remember what the Backstreet Boys said. Hang tough, man. Hang tough. A little later, I am going to talk more about soil amendments, but first... So I've noticed that during the quarantine, I've been eating a lot more. Well, not so much eating a lot more, but like munching a lot more, you know what I mean? I'm constantly like circling back to the kitchen for a piece of fruit, some chips, I don't know, gummy bears. And you know, it's not a nervous eating. It's just kind of boredom. I don't know. What about you? You eating more? So you know how I've spoken about some states having cannabis as being essential. Cannabis in liquor stores. And there's a reason for that, obviously. But because of that, I want to bring your attention to the Last Prisoner Project. And what it basically is it's a legal project of lawyers and volunteers that help people who are in prison for non-violent cannabis offenses get out of prison. Not just get out of prison, but get those charges expunged. And I think that's a really important thing. Because we should really pay attention to that, you know. In a lot of states where cannabis is legal, it's seen as essential. But yet there are some people incarcerated for long periods of time for nonviolent cannabis offenses. And the Last Prisoner Project basically makes sure that those people, those individuals, those prisoners of the drug war, they're able to get the proper legal representation and some legal help. So when you get a moment during the quarantine, do me a favor, go to lastprisonerproject.org. Take a look at what they're doing. Sign up to be a volunteer or donate some money, but let's straighten this out. Let's help these people because this is hypocrisy at its very most obvious the way I see it. So remember last week when I mentioned that Green Flower Media was putting their Cannabis Fundamentals course up for free? So I went over and checked it out. Signed up for it. I've been taking it for like the past 3 days. I think, I don't know, man. I've got like maybe 3 or 4 modules left. And it's an okay program, you know. I've learned a few things I didn't know. The botany portion with Mel Frank was awesome. I did learn a few things and some things got clarified for me. So again, if you have the chance, go to greenflowermedia.com and sign up for their Cannabis Fundamentals course, man. It's not going to take you very long. I think there's like 8 or 9 modules and each one only takes like an hour to do at most. So, you know, like I did, I just broke it up, you know, 1 a day or maybe even 2 a day because sometimes, you know, I get really bored at home. And like I said before, if you're looking to get into the cannabis business but you don't know where to start, this is a good place to start. Take the fundamentals course, get a certificate, and then see what you can do with it. See where it'll lead you. At the very least, you'll have some kind of piece of paper that says someone tested you about your knowledge of cannabis. And really, that's what a lot of companies want to see is that you know someone's tested you, or some kind of range of knowledge of cannabis and how to use it and how it's going to affect the body and all these things. And a lot of that stuff is covered in the Cannabis Fundamentals. So yeah, check it out, man. I'll let you know when I'm done. I should be done later this week, but I'll let you know how that goes. And staying on that same kind of topic, can I encourage you to do something during this quarantine? Start a business. Start that business that you've been curious about starting. Just put your idea down, man, and start a business for it. This is a great opportunity. This is a great time, man. It's like a level playing field for a lot of people. Write that idea down and get it going. I'm not saying it has to be up and running by the end of quarantine, but, start making moves in that direction of your business. Especially right now because, a lot of people are uncertain of their employment prospects because of the quarantine. A lot of people got laid off. This is a perfect opportunity for you. Start a business. Seriously, do it. It's not an easy thing, but it's also not impossible. So do it, man. Invest a little in yourself. Put some time into it. Check it out. There you go. That's my PSA. Start your own business. Have a certain level of financial freedom. So this morning, as I was putting the show together, getting my notes up, I realized it's Easter Sunday. It kind of escaped me just because of everything else that's going on. But today, on this Sunday, there is no church. There are no Easter egg hunts, probably for a lot of reasons. One, because, you can't congregate in, crowds bigger than 2. And the other thing is that eggs are at a premium right now, Eggs are not the easiest thing to find right now. I don't know how many people would actually, boil eggs and paint them. I don't know, maybe you would for your kids, right? Just to break up the monotony and have some normalcy? Sure. But, it's just a trip, man. I'd go to the store. The Easter candy would be available for me to buy, but I couldn't buy any, Easter baskets or any toys for anybody. Nope, none of that. Had to be food. So, this year, if you get something from me for Easter, it's going to be candy. Just so you know that. All right, now let's get to the strain of the week. And today I am going to give it up to the Nepal Kush, which is an indica-dominant hybrid of the Hindu Kush and the Nepal. This was a good smoke. I liked it. I'm not a big indica fan, mostly because, really strong indicas tend to just give me couch lock. This did not, though. This Nepali Kush was a nice fucking smoke, man. It smelled great, had this really floral, spicy, with a little bit of pine cones thrown in there kind of smell to it and taste. Now, this Nepal Kush came in at about a 20% THC, which was awesome. Now, even though it was 20%, it was still a bit of a heavy hitter for me, man. It was hard for me to really stay focused. And I don't know if that's part of being the indica, but, I was really easily distracted. But it was a great high, though. It was a really fun high. And again, it didn't give me couch luck on the way down. I just kind of leveled out to sober. I didn't get all sleepy. Oh, time for a nap. Nope, none of that happened. But I don't think I would be putting this in any kind of brownies since it is an indica. I don't want to give people brownies and then have everybody fall asleep. That'd just be a bummer. I mean, unless that's what you're going for. Anyways, I'm rambling. Yes, the Nepali Kush, you see it out there, get it, especially if you like indicas. All right, now I want to talk a little bit about Charlotte Figge. She passed away this past week at 13, what seems to be complications of the coronavirus. Now, if you don't know who she was, do yourself a favor, take a moment, Google her, see what she was all about. She was an awesome cannabis warrior and a great spokesperson for CBD. She's the reason why we have the strain Charlotte's Web. Charlotte was born with a very rare seizure disorder called Dravet syndrome. By the time she was 5 years old, she was having 300 seizures a day. She was in a wheelchair. She had a feeding tube in her because she couldn't swallow. So at around that age of 5, her mom, Miss Figge, she started doing research on CBD. She took it upon herself to find out what CBD was. She found some cultivators who agreed to help her look for and grow strains that could help her daughter's seizure disorder. And her mom really wasn't expecting too much from the therapy. She wasn't really expecting it to work from what she says. But it did. And she said that Charlotte didn't have any seizures for 7 days after they started the treatment. And soon after that, Charlotte was starting to talk. She was making eye contact. She was walking. Eventually, they removed her feeding tube. And the seizures were reduced to about 1 a month, which is an amazing story and an amazing turnaround. Like I said, if you don't know the story of Charlotte Figge, go find out. She was a true cannabis warrior. And she really did help push the conversation of cannabis as medicine forward. So Charlotte Figge, thank you for being who you were. And my thoughts and prayers go out to the Figge family. All right, now let's do the report from the Cannabis Frontline. Now, first article I'm going to talk about comes from NORML, that is normal.org. and it's titled Participants in a Confidential Survey Assessing Cannabis Use Patterns During the COVID-19 Pandemic. A team of researchers affiliated with the University of Miami School of Nursing is collecting epidemiological data. Ooh, I can't believe I got that out. To better evaluate how cannabis consumers and patients in particular are responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. Investigators are seeking respondents to participate in an anonymous electronic survey which is available to evaluate whether consumers have experienced changes in their frequency of cannabis use, dosing, access, or preferred methods of ingestion as a result of either COVID-19 related closures or emergency actions. Answers will be kept strictly confidential, and the length of time necessary to complete the survey is approximately 5 to 10 minutes. So that's kind of a cool survey to be done, to find out how, cannabis use patterns have changed. Because I know for me, being quarantined, dude, I smoke a lot more pot. Now, I'm not smoking more pot because I'm, anxious or scared. I'm smoking more pot because I'm fucking bored. Don't get me wrong. I fill my day pretty good with shit that I gotta do. But there are those couple of hours in the day where I'm just fucking looking around. So I'll smoke a bigger joint than usual. Not so much, again, because I'm anxious, but just to break up the boredom, to see if I can make the boredom a little more exciting. Maybe get lost in my head and start thinking about, is there a left and a right sock? But anyways, there's a link in the show notes if you want to be a part of this survey. Now, speaking of Easter, I ran into an article, it's off of, I think at the website's called Red State, and the title reads, California pastor city councilman holds Palm Sunday service despite non-essential designation. And this was written by Jennifer Van Laar. It says, Robert McCoy, a community leader and pastor in Southern California's Conejo Valley, faced a dilemma this week. As a pastor, he felt led to offer communion for his congregation on Palm Sunday despite an order from the Ventura County public health officials ruling that churches are non-essential services. As a sitting city councilman for the city of Thousand Oaks, he was obligated to uphold the public health officer's order. Eventually, and not surprising to those who knew him, McCoy chose God over man. He resigned his position as a city councilman after announcing that God Speaks Calvary Church would administer Palm Sunday communion service. So trip out, man. Yeah, this guy was a city councilman and a pastor of a church. So he was kind of being pulled in two directions. One, the city was, kind of doing this whole public safety thing of self-quarantine and social distancing. And because he was a city official, he kind of had to go along with it. But at the same time, he's also a pastor of a church, and one of the biggest religious Christian holidays is just happening. So yeah, man, the guy decided to resign as a city councilman. And he said he's still going to hold church services. So, yeah, that's a trip, man. That's been a real trip for me to see, is that churches were shut down. Now, I'm not a really religious person, but, all through history, when things like this, pandemics would happen or wars, people would flock to religious sites, they'd flock to churches and temples. And now it's a trip because in the modern age, you have a quarantine or an outbreak like this, and they're like, no, you can't even go to church. Now, I don't know if that says anything about our society. I'm not going to get into that deep of it, at least not without two more joints. But I just find it an interesting thing, I would think that religious people would be kind of more upset about the quarantine. Or maybe they are more upset. I just don't know a lot of religious people. So yeah, man, this guy McCoy just decided to stand with God. Good for him. Good for him for standing by his convictions. I hope nobody gets sick if they do show up. And I really do hope they don't arrest this guy. I think arresting pastors and arresting people is a little too far. Yeah, I mean, there's both sides to it. I hear both sides. You have social responsibility, this and that. I get that. But is there a middle ground? Can there be a middle ground? The whole point of church and religion isn't just to hear the message, but it's also that communal kind of community thing. You get to hang out with people, and you're there with people of like-mindedness. I don't know, man. It's just one more thing that the quarantine has made us really have to evaluate to ourselves what's important. What are we willing to give up, and what aren't we willing to give up? Now, the last article I want to read comes from a place called The Lawyer's Daily, and it was put together by Russell Bennett, and the title is Non-Essential Cocaine Business, No Joke. And it starts off, Hamilton cops, I believe that's Hamilton, somewhere in Canada. It says, Hamilton cops charged a man with selling cocaine operating a non-essential business. So that brings up a couple of questions. One, did they legitimize the guy selling cocaine by calling his business non-essential? I mean, that's basically what they're saying, right? It's not like they were, arresting him for selling drugs. They're arresting him for running a non-essential business. Well, I mean, they didn't arrest him. It says, allegedly, the Hamilton police gave the cocaine salesman delivery man a ticket with the following charges: failure to comply with an order given during a declared emergency. The order was that he failed to shut down his business, which was selling and delivering cocaine. So yeah, again, right there, did they just legitimize this guy's cocaine business? And what's wrong with him doing a delivery service, first of all, right? As long as he's masked up and gloved up, come on, man, let him sell his cocaine. People need it. You don't want people going through cocaine withdrawals as there's an epidemic, would you? Do you? I don't. I mean, because really, isn't that the same reason why liquor stores are still open? Because the powers that be don't want people going through alcohol withdrawal as an epidemic is going on, as a pandemic and quarantine is going on. So really, that's why liquor stores were deemed to be essential. Couldn't we use that same thinking of being essential for cocaine? Well, I don't know. What do you think? And then that makes me wonder also, I mean, how many people are out there actually trying drugs for the first time because they're quarantined, because they don't have to go to work anyways for a couple of weeks? So it's like, let's fucking do this, that, and the other. I'm sure that's going on, right? That's got to be going on. Did you do that? Did you try weed for the first time because you're quarantined? Probably not. Anyways, man. Canada's going to legitimize this guy's business of being a cocaine dealer by calling it non-essential. Well, good for them. And that, brothers and sisters, is the report from the Cannabis Front Line. All right, now let's keep going with some more soil amendments. And I want to start off with alfalfa meal, which is going to have an NPK of around, it's like 2.5, 5, and 2, typically. It's usually a nice little balance of the NPK of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Alfalfa meal is also going to have some magnesium and some sulfur in it for you. Now, if you remember also, the alfalfa is a natural source of tricantanol, which is a natural plant growth regulator. So remember that if you want some nice uniform looking buds naturally, like with some organic kind of plant growth regulators, alfalfa meal is going to be one of those that's going to do it for you. Holy cow, I think I'm losing my voice, man. You hear that? I'm a little hoarse now, suddenly. All right, let's move on. Now, it is also going to contain vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin E, riboflavin, biotin, and folic acid, as well as 16 other amino acids. And those are some of the benefits of using alfalfa meal as a soil amendment. Now, next is cottonseed meal, which is high in nitrogen. The NPK is usually about 6.22. So it's really high in nitrogen is the cottonseed meal. And it's been used for a long time to lower the pH in soil. If your soil is too acidic, cottonseed meal has been known to lower that. But there is one little tricky thing about cottonseed meal. Even though it is cheap and easy to find, some states don't consider it an organic amendment. And that's because since cotton is so heavily just drenched in pesticides, that the fear is that some of those pesticides could leach into the whatever plant that you're putting this cottonseed meal on. That's why some states will not certify cottonseed meal as organic. So just remember that if you're going to use cottonseed meal in like a commercial application. Now next, just a quick note about coffee grounds. The NPK is about 2% nitrogen and then like very little phosphorus and potassium. It's like 0.6 of each. So mostly that coffee ground is really going to help with the nitrogen in it. Now next is diatomaceous earth, which is inert, and it helps with water retention in our soil. But it's also going to help add a little aeration to that soil too, which is going to help improve airflow around the root zone. So it's really good to use if you have like a sandy soil, because the diatomaceous earth, like I said, is going to help that sandy soil hold some water more easily, I should say. And diatomaceous earth is also a really good source of silica. which is, just going to help our plants all around. It's going to help them deal with drought easier. It's going to help, build a root zone. And silica is just good for everything. It's going to make your plants more hardy so that pests have a harder time attacking those plants. Next, just a quick note about dolomite lime, which is a limestone compound that has calcium and magnesium. The best mixes that I've found will usually have anywhere between 8 and 12% of magnesium and 18 to 22% of calcium. Now, granite dust, which is a volcanic rock, which means it contains over 60 different elements, including many trace elements. A lot of commercial fertilizer formulas really don't have too many trace elements in them. So adding granite dust to your soil as a top dressing really does help. And online I found a formula that says you should use 1.25 pounds per every square yard. So there you go. If it helps you, that's how much you need to use. Now green sand, which is also called, let me see if I get this right, it's either gluconite or glauconite. And it's basically just material from the ocean floor that's been mined to be used as a soil conditioner or fertilizer. It typically has a bluish green color and it's made from marine potash. It's got silica in it, iron oxide, manganese, lime, phosphoric acid, just to name a few. And it's also a really good source of potassium. The NPK on green sand is usually a 003, so it's basically really heavy in potassium. And finally, for today's soil amendments is gypsum. And it's really good for loosening up like compacted soil, especially if you have a really clay, especially if your soil has a lot of clay in it. The gypsum will help add what are called aggregates. It'll help kind of make it less compact, make it a little more fluffier. It's also going to add some calcium to it. And it's going to help kind of loosen up and break up and let that excess salt or sodium in the soil be able to wash out of it or wash away, which makes it really good if you're growing anywhere close to the coast, because you do have that marine layer that comes over. Sometimes it's a little salty air. That salt air and moisture is going to settle on the soil. So gypsum is really going to help kind of just make that more workable, more manageable. Now me, I don't really use gypsum. What I do instead, if I see that I've got soil that's compacted, or if I go somewhere and someone has this really clayey, really compacted soil, the best thing that I do is mix that soil with some nice organic compost. Because while the gypsum is really good at creating aeration in that clayey soil, it doesn't last a very long time. It lasts a few months, because by then it all gets used up or washed away. So the organic compost really does both things. It'll help aerate and fluff up that soil, and it'll also increase the soil structure that I want for a longer period of time, and it's going to make that soil more fertile too, because of some of the organic material that's still in there, some of the microbes that are still in that organic compost. It's really going to help recondition that soil. So if you have some, really clayey, really compacted soil, I would just mix that compacted soil with some really rich organic compost. And that, brothers and sisters, wraps up the soil amendment portion of today's episode. Now, don't forget, if you have a question or a comment about this episode, you can send an email to inmygrow@gmail.com, or you can find us on Cannabis, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of those. Just look for @InMyGrowShow. Well, since it is the end of my notes, brothers and sisters, that's all I have to share with you today. That's it. Now, don't forget, if this show has given you value, if it's educated you, entertained you, or even given you just a little bit of escape from your day, do us a favor and throw a few bucks our way. You can go over to patreon.com/inmygrow and leave a donation there. Or you can go to inmygrow.com, click on the Support the Show tab, and buy a t-shirt. Also, before you go shopping on Amazon, you can click on the Amazon link at the top of the show notes in this episode, because that just lets them know that we sent you and the show gets a commission that costs you nothing. And yet another way to support the show financially is through PayPal. You can send any amount of donation to inmygrow@gmail.com. Now, as always, if you can't support the show financially, don't worry about it. I get it. Here's how you can help. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to it. Don't forget to leave a rating and a review. Then go over to inmygrow.com, subscribe to the website. And after that, go to YouTube, look for In My Grow Show with Alex, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And then after you do all that subscribing, just one more thing. Tell 3 other people about the show. That's it. Real easy. Just tell 3 other people. Now, as always, I want to thank all of the artists who let me use their music to put the show together. And I especially want to thank all of you once again for listening to me. I truly do appreciate it, man. Well, as I said, hermanos y hermanas, brothers and sisters, I'm going to get on out of here. I'm going to go watch Jesus of Nazareth. I love that movie. I really do. I'm not a really religious person. That's probably one of my favorite, like, made-for-TV Jesus movies. Is Jesus of Nazareth. It was like a 1970s made-for-TV movie. I don't know. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great Easter. You know that I love you all very much. And remember to always grow, learn, and teach.